Welcome to the latest installment of the True Kids One Democracy Project. I'm Isabella O'Donnell-Silfverberg, and I'm here with Kristina Ortez, District Representative from the 42nd District. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we're very happy to have you. Do you see, what kind of limitations do you see in it being a legislature of people who can afford to do that volunteer position?
I think it's really limiting. In 2020 was a pretty historic year for the House, the New Mexico House of Representatives. That's the year that more women came into positions. So we now have majority women. So I think that has really shifted the conversation around how to modernize, what it looks like. I think if if you're rich or retired or resourceful, you have a different perspective on what the needs are of New Mexicans, and those perspectives shape the decisions that you make about the budget, for instance. That's the biggest thing we do, but also all the policies that all the laws that we pass, right? And if you have somebody who represents a community and they share a history, they share the kind of lifestyle as their community members, they're going to be able to bring those voices to the legislature. They're going to be able to bring those voices to their decision making. I talk a lot about how a budget is really, it's your value system. The budget represents your priorities and your values. You make, how much do you make? I'm not going to ask you that. Okay, I'm going to assume that you're making $500 a month. All right. How you spend that money is based on what you think is important, right? So that's what a state budget is too, right? That budget is created by what we value, and if you have other voices that contribute to that debate, it shifts the values. So more voices of people who are working parents, working families, I think that starts to adjust how we do the budget and how we write laws.
Right. So in addition to your position being a volunteer one, kind of being limiting in terms of representation, it kind of leads to another question about the primary system, because that's what you're running for right now.
Right. And
there's the argument that, especially in this race, because there are no Republican candidates, that it's disenfranchising to Republican voters. And I'm wondering about your opinion on that. Why do you see this race as important?
I think it's important to look at the whole map of House districts in the state of New Mexico. And in December of 2021, we all came back, every House member and Senate member came back, and we voted on new maps based on the census data. So we did it's called a redistricting process, right? And so we adjusted districts based on population size, and Taos County grew a little bit. So my district didn't really shift this district that I represent, District 42, didn't change a ton, but there were districts on the west side of Albuquerque and in other parts, I think down in the south, that really changed quite a bit. So you make adjustments in the maps, right? And those adjustments automatically really kind of shift the political complexion of those districts. So this is a district, House District 42, that is pretty solidly Democrat. So I think it's important to know that going into a primary race, that this is a district that is really going to be difficult to ever be Republican, unless that Republican is extremely liberal, right? So that I guess I feel like it's important for other perspectives to be voiced, and what I hope that as a representative I can, that those folks are talking to me. I'll give you an example. I have a really strong relationship, I think, with the folks in Cuesta, many who are Republican, and we talk a lot about how to bring the resources to Cuesta, and we're different parties, right? But we're all working together at the district level. So I think we may see a shift in the political complexion of this district, but I think it would take a long time. This is a solidly Democratic district, so the race is in the primary, and that's kind of where we are.
Yeah, this kind of leads into my next question, which is, what do you think that we could do to help represent the voices of the people who can't vote in this election?
That's a fantastic question. We've got a situation with primaries in New Mexico in that they're not open primaries. You have to declare your party affiliation to be able to vote in that primary for that party. There are lots of declined to state voters in this district. There are lots of declined to state voters all over the place. I support the idea of an open primary. Not all of my colleagues support that on both sides of the aisle, because I think it can be scary for some folks. I think in this district, most declined to states are probably lean more progressive. In other districts, they don't. So there have been many bills dealing with this issue. We had one that was coming through that was represented by my good friend Natalie Figueroa, and it got stuck in our committee, the Government Elections and Indian Affairs Committee. We really debated it, this idea of creating like a commission that would allow for things like open primaries, and it didn't go anywhere. I'm open to this possibility, but that's not a viewpoint that's shared by a lot of my colleagues.
Yeah. Which leads fantastically yet again into my next question, which is, since your opponent is from the same party as you, they might be a little bit difficult to distinguish politically at times for people who don't know you personally.
Right.
So I'm wondering, can you give us a few specific things that distinguish you from your opponent?
Yep. Well, one, I'm holding the seat right now, and I've got 2 years of experience on this, and in those 2 years a lot happens. You build relationships, you really learn how to do things, and I'm going to remind folks that first year I was doing, and almost all of us, the Dems anyway, were legislating and making decisions over Zoom. So, but nonetheless, the relationships exist, or the knowledge, the gaining of institutional knowledge about how things are done. I think that's really, really important to point out. I think we share lots of values, around small business, economic development. I think we differ quite a bit on oil and gas. I am very, very focused on how we can transition from an oil and gas economy to one that will allow us to live on this planet, definitely allow us to live in this state. One of the reasons why my voice is as hoarse as it is right now is because of this raging mega fire, now the largest fire in New Mexico history. So I think there's a big difference between the two of us right there. I'm very focused on climate change, focused on setting emission standards, really want us to move away and shift our economic base. It's going to take some time. I'm also a realist when it comes to oil and gas and how it has an impact on our budget. But I think that's probably the biggest difference. I also differ, from what I understand from her, a bit on the sort of range of reproductive choice for women. I truly believe that abortion care is health care, and that we need to be protecting a woman's right to make that decision for herself, along with her doctor and her faith if necessary, if that's where she's inclined, but government should not be in the way. And I think that's probably those are the two biggest differences, I think.
So I'm representing True Kids 1, and I'm a student. So I guess I'm just wondering, what part of your platform is most relevant to the youth of Taos and the youth everywhere?
That is a great question. I have 2 children of my own who are going through the school system here, so I think especially focused on what kind of future we're creating, for them, for you. The things that I think we can move most on politically, and the things that I think this community needs the most are, climate change, housing, and of course, behavioral health. And so I want to just talk about each of them very quickly. On climate change, like we need to have really big, bold action so that you can, go away for college and then come back and have a place that has, clean drinking water and good air quality. That's really, really important, be able to grow food. So to do that, I think especially with what we're seeing now, we need to make huge investments in our budget with regard to restoration of the forests, healthy soil, really focusing on our food security in this community, but really, I think most importantly, establishing those net zero emission standards that I think is the only way that we're going to continue to live on this planet. One. Secondly, I want you to go away. I want you to enjoy your young adulthood. I really want you to come back. And I know that in 10 years from now, you're going to have a hard time coming back and finding a place to live. I mean, you can live with your mom. You can live in my studio if you want.
My mom can't even find a place.
Okay, so, right, you guys both are going to have a hard time unless we do something like 5 years ago, but really, truly this very, very moment on ensuring that we all have, every single one of us has a place to live that is affordable, that doesn't cost a lot to run with utilities. This is really, really important. And we've been talking about this for a long time, but I think right now we're at this really beautiful, magical moment on housing where finally everyone is having this conversation at the same time in the same room. That hasn't happened in a really long time. I'm a part of those conversations. We've got the town and the county, other state agencies, all our nonprofits that we're working together on finding solutions so that you can come back and be able to take the job that you want to take that represents your values, right? Maybe it's teaching, maybe it's, I don't know, as a journalist, maybe you've got Sandy's job. He's going to be retired at this, in 10 years from now. But I want you to be able to live here and pay 25 to 30% or even less of your salary to housing. And I want you to be able to actually find a place. Super critical that we do that right now. We have to throw all of our energy into that. And thirdly, we're in total crisis behavioral health wise. There's no question, right? And I've heard that we need somewhere between 50 to 80 licensed clinical therapists to help us in this community, in northern New Mexico in general, really sort of work through the issues that we experience here, the deep historical trauma. We have our deep poverty, I think, really plays an impact in who we are and how we see ourselves. We need to be fixing that and addressing the behavioral health needs here. Several years ago, with the former governor, Susana Martinez, we had, basically a complete wipeout of our behavioral health supports and resources, right? That's slowly building back up, but we're not moving fast enough. We know that at the state. We do, but we need to do way more. There are some really cute programs that happen in state government, like grow your own teachers, grow your own doctors, and it has a cute name, but really it's important, right? We need to be able to make investments in the people who are helping each other in community. So I'm thinking of things like grow your own therapist. That would, this is what it looks like. It means giving tuition support while you're in grad school to become a therapist, to become a behavioral health worker, forgiving loans, helping with housing. Those are the kinds of things that we can do, and we have so much money in the budget right now. We should be really investing in this. I think those are the things that really affect our community right now. There are a host of other things, but those are what I've heard from community really need to be done right away.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Is there anything else important you would like us to know today?
I'm thrilled that you're interviewing me. I love that there's a whole group of young people who care about democracy. We debated the Voting Rights Act on the floor on the last day of the session. I think the debate began at 5 or 6 in the morning, and I stood on the floor and debated about this bill that would have expanded voting rights for everyone. And one of the things we talked about early on in the session was the idea of 16-year-olds having the right to vote. And I talked to a number of folks. I don't know if you and I talked about it, but
we did.
I had lots of conversations with high school students going into the session about that, and everyone was in favor of it. And I thought that was really powerful. And I took that message to Santa Fe, and I was surprised that there were folks of my own party who begged to differ, right? But there was one person in particular who supported that idea. This woman named Gail Chasey. She's the chair of the Judiciary Committee. And what she said will have a lasting impact on how I think about this. She said, we have to create chronic voters, and we have to invest in our young people really, really early on. Lots of 16-year-olds are way, way smarter than 48-year-olds like myself. And I want you to know that I will not stop fighting for that. I want you to have a voice, and you have a voice when you vote. Thanks.
Well, thank you very, very much for speaking with us today.
Thank you.
We really appreciate having you here, and good luck.
Thanks.